It's 2024, and you know what they say, a new year, a new Wii. Or, in this instance, a new Switch. For years now, Nintendo customers have been begging for a sequel to their portable delight, with many die-hard fans of the Big N regularly frantically searching online in order to learn every scrap of information there is about this mysterious piece of hardware. By this point in time, there has been an insane amount of articles published about this curious console, so bearing this in mind, today I have decided to celebrate this by taking you on a journey to explore everything there is to know about this secretive system. I am Lady Decade, and these are all the rumours, speculation and factual evidence that exists in the unfolding Nintendo Switch 2 story so far. Over the last 7 years, the Nintendo Switch has not just emerged as one of the most popular Nintendo platforms ever, but one of the most popular platforms ever, period. So it's no wonder that so many of its users are salivating to get their hands on Nintendo's next big product. While the Nintendo Switch itself has been a fun piece of technology to own for a good while now, hardware-wise, it has been beginning to look a little long in the tooth, sporting mass rumours and speculation that the company were going to release a Pro model that would deliver a more refined experience than the base model that we have grown to know and love. In fact, it felt like, for several years, gaming news sites and YouTubers were reporting that such a console was imminent, with multiple insider sources indicating that such a device was very much in the works. For many, it wasn't a case of if Nintendo were releasing a Switch Pro, but more like when. In July of 2021, though, the hype was tempered, with Nintendo announcing that they were going to release a new model of the Switch in October of that same year. However, sadly, this was not the powerhouse of a system that Switch Pro fantasists craved. Instead, the latest Nintendo Switch model was just the same console from 5 years earlier, but more expensive and equipped with an OLED screen. This, of course, induced mild outrage online, as the PS Vita offered the same technology an entire 10 years earlier, but didn't have the cheek to market their entire system around such a feature. People were disappointed that by this point the so-called Switch Pro could be nothing more than vaporware. Fast forward a year later to December 2022, these fears were pretty much confirmed. According to Digital Foundry, GoNintendo.com would report that they had spoken with multiple unnamed developers working on the Switch Pro, who had confirmed that the Switch Pro model that they were working on, the mid-gen update machine, was indeed a dead project. Digital Foundry would speculate that such cancellation was likely due to the fact that Nintendo was worried about transitioning successfully from the Switch to a successor, and wouldn't want a confusing situation unfolding similar to the release of the Nintendo Wii, followed by the Wii U. Around this time, Forbes would report on Digital Foundry's discussion too, declaring that the Nintendo Switch Pro had been cancelled in favour of the Nintendo Switch 2. They would add that it seems pretty clear what Nintendo fans want from a next-gen Switch. They literally just want a next-gen Switch. A Switch that has more power, even if it won't come close to competing with the likes of PS5 or Xbox Series X, which no one expects. But the Switch's hardware is badly dated at this point, and while some developers can extract more potential out of it than others, across the board it's clear that there are severe limitations because of the console's age, and the fact that when it launched it was already behind the PS4 and Xbox One on the power front. Now it's a full generation later, and that gap is a chasm. The Switch 2 does not have to beat or even come close to matching PS5 or Series X power. It just has to be a significant improvement on the current Switch. Keep making the same games the same way, and it will be yet another mega hit. No Wii U disaster to worry about. But we'll see what happens. Moving into January of 2023, Screen Rant would state that a new report from Japan indicated that a successor to the Nintendo Switch could be launched in 2024, with the company in negotiations with suppliers. They would point to an article written entirely in Japanese on Nikkei.com, locked behind a paywall. Reddit user Anorak Dream states that the article mainly talks about the current state of Nintendo Switch and its sales outlook. It states that 20 million Switches are expected to be sold in 2023, that the successor is not expected until the second half of 2024, and that the Nintendo Switch era will likely surpass the NES era as the longest console generation for Nintendo. When asked about the next generation console strategy at press conferences, Nintendo president Shuntaro Furukawa simply replied, "We want to provide entertainment that is different from others." But behind the scenes, negotiations with suppliers on a production system are also beginning. Fast forwarding along to May of 2023, VideoGamesChronicle.com would report that the development of Nintendo's next console was progressing well. Further information surfaced from Nikkei Asia on their website. They note that the Switch successor will be arriving in 2024, adding that according to their close source to Nintendo, development seems to be progressing well, but a product launch won't happen before next spring at earliest. VGC would also add that Nintendo Switch sales were slowing down, with the Japanese global gaming giant stating, "Nintendo Switch has entered its 7th year since launch, and while it will become more challenging to maintain the same sales momentum as before, our goal is to have more consumers continue to play Nintendo Switch for longer, leading to maximised sales." According to Bloomberg, Nintendo president Furukawa appeared at Nintendo's annual forecast, adding, "Sustaining the Switch's sales momentum will be difficult in its 7th year. Our goal of selling 15 million units this fiscal year is a bit of a stretch, but we will do our best to bolster demand going into the holiday season so that we can achieve the goal." Still, this is an amazing feat, which perhaps suggests why fans have been waiting for a Switch 2 or a Switch Pro for so long. So while 2023 and 2024 appeared uncertain times for the Switch, Furukawa acknowledged that, "In the history of our game console business, we have never seen 10 million units of hardware still being sold at this stage. We are now in unknown territory." By July, Nintendo Switch 2 news and rumours would continue to heat up, with VGC reporting that development kits for Nintendo's next console are now with key partner studios, with the launch being planned for next year. They would add, "According to multiple people with knowledge of Nintendo's next-gen console plans, the company is likely to release new hardware during the second half of 2024 to ensure that it has ample stock available on day one and to avoid the kind of shortages seen with PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X/S." They would go on to claim they had spoken to 2 sources who had told them that the console could be launched with an LCD screen as opposed to an OLED screen to keep costs down. They'd also report that, like the original Switch, the Switch 2 will accept physical media, but backwards compatibility remains unclear. Building on discussing such a feature, they would add that although the Nintendo Switch's 100 million plus user base would appreciate backwards compatibility, apparently third-party publishers were concerned that if the Switch 2 supports legacy games, then it could negatively impact next-gen sales. They would also speak to a Tokyo-based consultant known as Dr. Serkan Toto, who would contribute to this discussion by adding, "I would generally say that looking at Nintendo's financials, it seems clear that it's time for a new piece of hardware in 2024. Hardware is already projected to fall 16.5% year-on-year in the current fiscal, while the minus for software is expected to hit 15.9%. The only way to stop these losses from totally ballooning next fiscal is a new device, and the second half of 2024 sounds like a realistic release window to me." Also, reaching to Reed Pop's head of Games B2B, Christopher Dring, for comment, he would add that, "The original Switch released over 3 years after PS4 and Xbox One, which proved to be an effective move for Nintendo. A second half 2024 release for Switch 2 would be nearly 4 years after PS5 and Xbox Series X and S, so we would see a similar mid-cycle launch for Nintendo." I'd argue that unlike 2017, Microsoft and Sony's consoles still feel relatively new at the moment, partially due to component shortages slowing down the rollout in the first 2 years, and software delays meaning we've not seen too many titles take full advantage of either PS5 or Xbox Series X. So it's to be seen whether Nintendo will enjoy the same benefit. The biggest competitor Nintendo faces is itself. Although its core fans are eager for more hardware, its more family-orientated casual fans will need more convincing. What will the next Mario Kart offer that they're currently not getting from the current one, for example? Nintendo has struggled to upgrade players in previous generations, so how it approaches things like digital libraries, the Nintendo account, and even backwards compatibility may prove crucial in the next system getting off to a strong start. If Nintendo opts for a Q4 release next year, I'd expect the company to have multiple games ready to go for launch. Moving closer towards today, September 2023 would deliver some more interesting developments in the Nintendo Switch 2 story. Eurogamer.net would report that in Cologne, at Nintendo's public Gamescom show floor booth, those in attendance got to experience both Pikmin 4 and Super Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. But it's what was apparently occurring behind the scenes that day which was more intriguing. A behind closed doors developers presentation reportedly took place, whereby partners would be shown tech demos showcasing how well the Switch 2 is designed to run. At this event, allegedly a souped up version of Breath of the Wild was present, but since this was just a tech demo, there is sadly no evidence that this will be fleshed out to become a full retail release. Screen Rant noted that VGC corroborated this report via their own sources, claiming that part of Nintendo's demonstration showed the new device running Unreal Engine 5's The Matrix Awakens tech demo, achieving visuals on par with the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X via Nvidia's AI upscaling technology, DLSS. If true, this would bring the Switch graphically in line with the most powerful handheld gaming devices on the market, the systems that have been popping up in a post-Steam Deck world. In October 2023, some interesting news would surface that may or may not relate directly to the Switch 2. Game Rant would post an article with a headline reading that Nintendo had patented a dual-screen gaming device that can be split in half and become two separate handheld devices. They would comment, "The recent Nintendo patent looks an awful lot like a 3DS, but the device can be split in half. The two separate halves can communicate with each other wirelessly, allowing two gamers to play together on the same device. While connected, the two halves play together like a DS or 3DS. Interestingly enough, there is also a touchscreen on the outside of the console, which allows gamers to interact with the handheld even when it's closed." Looking at the design documents, this looks like an interesting concept indeed, but is this really the Switch 2? Well, not necessarily, as companies often simply patent products just to protect their ideas rather than necessarily developing them into sellable products. Considering how different this device looks to the Switch, I think it's unlikely this is the Switch's successor, but then again, Nintendo's decision making has been far from conventional in the past, so I guess, why would it be this time? Hands up if you want a 4DS. Moving on to the dawn of the futuristic year of 2024, we have yet to hear any more about the 4DS, but Nintendo Switch 2 news has been spreading like an Australian bushfire. On the 3rd of January, WCCFtech.com wrote that a Nintendo Switch 2 2024 release seems to be a lock, and Japanese developers are excited about it. They would bring together a range of different sources, including a comment from Resident Evil 3 remake director Masao Kawada that he made when speaking to the Japanese publication 4Gamer. Many infer that he indirectly commented on the Switch 2 when talking about his aspirations for 2024, with him stating, "I'm looking forward to new game consoles in 2024, and there are more and more indie titles that I'm interested in. While the game industry is booming in many areas, there are various dilemmas, but we will do our best to release games next year as well." Koei Tecmo's Fumihiko Yasuda, behind the upcoming Rise of Ronin, said, "His team cannot wait to see what the new consoles and their titles will bring." Kenichi Ogasawari, another Koei Tecmo employee, also said a new console had been the centre of their attention. WCCF Tech added that Spike Chunsoft's Yusuke Katakata also shared his excitement for the Nintendo Switch 2. The same publication would conclude that, according to multiple reports, the system will be revealed this March for a late 2024 release and will support Nvidia DLSS technology, including ray reconstruction, which will make it superior to the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X/S in terms of ray tracing quality and performance. If the rumoured specs are real, the Nintendo Switch 2 will also have no trouble delivering smooth 1080p gameplay with ray tracing. On the same day, VGC would post another article on the Switch 2, once again citing Dr. Serkan Toto, the CEO of Catan Games, a Tokyo-based industry consultancy. Toto told them, "The time is finally here for a Switch successor, even though I can say a Pro model actually did exist and certain developers were already working with the dev kit. I believe the next hardware will drop in 2024 for $400. There is a chance that games will cost more too, $70. The next system is also likely to be an iteration rather than a revolution. Nintendo might add some bells and whistles to the device, but it will be similar to the current Switch. And because there is Pokemon, and Pokemon is associated with handheld gaming, there is no way on earth Nintendo will drop the portability feature for their next big thing." Around this same time frame, GamingBible.com would also post an article stating that the Nintendo Switch 2's first game appears to have already been leaked online, commenting, "According to several social media accounts, some of which are more reliable than others, the Bayonetta trilogy will be released on the Nintendo Switch 2, with said collection including visual/performance enhancements." They would also state that the same leaker who posted about Bayonetta said we would hear about the Switch 2 by the end of the fiscal year, but Nintendo could still change their plans. Recently, CNBC has also reported on the Switch 2. They would be another publication that would cite comments by Dr. Serkan Toto. Building on all of the speculation though, they would cite Piers Harding-Rolls, research director of games at Ampere Analysis, who expects the launch of the new Switch in the fourth quarter of this year. They would also cite Atul Goyal, managing director at Jefferies, who adds, "The timings of the launch will depend on recent sales. If the Switch remains popular in the holiday quarter, then Nintendo could push a new console out to the fall of this year." Another factor that CNBC indicates is important when it comes to a Switch 2 launch is the success of the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Launching a new console could now see them capitalise further on their box office success, as the movie has raked in more than $1 billion. The Super Mario brand is arguably the hottest it has ever been. The publication would also grab comments from analyst Moffat Nathanson, who would add that the Switch 2 needs to be nothing more than an upgraded version of the original, stating that "an evolution, not a revolution, in the console strategy is likely. In other words, an iPhone model. With that comes the opportunity to ease the 130 million plus Switch audience into a familiar but more powerful form factor, and the ability for Nintendo to sell compelling first and third party games to a scaled audience." Trying to predict how well this system will sell, Moffat thinks the console's first few years could easily surpass the original Switch's first few years of sales, but trail off as we get into year 4 and beyond, as COVID-inflated comparisons of Nintendo's fiscal year in 2021 and 2022 are too challenging to overcome. Looking through all of this information, it appears that all apparent experts and insiders from the field are telling us that the Nintendo Switch successor will be iterative, which, to be fair to them, is pretty much what I would expect most consumers to want from such a product. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed listening to me sifting through copious amounts of rumours, speculation and facts surrounding the Nintendo Switch 2. Now you won't have to sift through dozens upon dozens of articles and videos to get the lowdown on this platform story so far. If you enjoyed this style of news content, be sure to hit the subscribe button and leave a comment on what you want from the upcoming Nintendo Switch 2. See you soon.